Hello, hello, hello. Hi. 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 How are we all doing today? Hi, Cass. And Raz. All of the self-care to start. Yes. Yes. It has been a long week. It's the last week of work. This is probably going to be the last session of reading this. I've got a new book coming next week. For next week. I agree, it is entirely too warm. It could be what? Wait, where's my fan? I have a fan. I don't know if you guys can hear it. I've had the fan on in previous streams. Metal, hi. 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 Oh. I love this thing because it refrigerates the air as it blows. Good time. You think I have a lot of fans? I do have a lot of fans, and I appreciate them. Everyone. Oh, and Raz wanted the bean. And we shall become inbeamed. Oh, I forgot I had all of these things. Get out of here. You're from the previous stream. Yeah. Yeah. We do enjoy the bean. Who doesn't enjoy the bean? I agree, perpetual autumn would be quite nice, because it's not too hot and it's not too cold. Spring's not too bad either. I also wouldn't mind eternal winter. Cold autumn, because then you can get cozy and comfy and cuddle, and it's fine. Cold autumn is best. Yes. Bean Loki best model? Perhaps. Perhaps. Skittles! Thank you so much for the bits. I have, as we know, for the reading streams, I kind of disable all the sound alerts and all of that stuff. Hi, Pink. Yeah. Mm. The weird thing is, Bean is also the cheapest model of all the ones I've got. It's just very well rigged, and I think it's very expressive, and I like that. Like if I smile, my cheeks glow. It's very cute. How was Punk today? As you can see, I've been doing a lot of painting. My Dark Angels. You can't really see them. Well, where the camera? When the cats inevitably appear, this will serve as cat cam. Blip. I mean, yeah, I've been doing some painting. More Dark Angels, which is the Legion you guys picked out. I'm really pretty happy with how these guys have turned out. They're also a lot easier to paint than Sisters of Battle. The banners were a bit of a nightmare, though. I'm very happy with how they've turned out, to be honest. I do wish it would focus a bit more. I know. I know. What if? That focus. I'm pretty happy with how they turned out, to be honest. I need to paint Pink's infantry at some point. That's going to be a thing. I'll probably stream the Relic Terminators just because I quite like. I think they're quite cool models. But yeah, we are gonna do a comfy reading. I'm not gonna do that. One of my boobs is really itchy right now, and I don't know why. And I was about to scratch it, but that probably wouldn't be appropriate for Twitch. Bleh. Bleh. But yeah. Okay, so. Where did we leave last time in the book? We got up to chapter 30. I think we finished chapter 30. It was either 29 or 30. Yeah, we finished chapter 30. And Lion and his fallen angels had found out that Seraphax had burned the first world he arrived on. Kill the live camera a moment, scratch, and then put it back on. You know what? That's an excellent idea. Ah. Sometimes, you just have an itch, and it's just like, you just have to attend it. You know? Okay. 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 We're back. So. Okay, Raz. Thank you for dropping by. I'll see you later. So, the story so far. The Lion and Zabriel responded to the distress signal and arrived at Kamath to find the entire planet burning. A small area was left untouched by the 10,000 eyes. And Seraphax's lieutenant, Markog, was there, waiting with a message, instructing them to arrive at a certain star system to meet and discuss a proposal. Seraphax, we know, leads the Chaos Warband of the 10,000 Eyes, and the Lion went to meet him. He was practicing the entire journey to use his forest walking ability to teleport, or well, travel through this magical forest warp realm to bypass any kind of ambush that Seraphax might leave for him. They arrived and they fought the cult Beastman, and then they fought the 10,000 Eyes Dolores Guard, which were the traitor space marines under Markog. Markog wanted to return the blow that Zabriel gave in a homage to the tale of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, where Sir Gawain beheaded the Green Knight and a year hence would return that blow, ending Gawain's life. Of course, the Dark Angels laughed at his attempt to claim it was a matter of honor, simply questioning, do you think we conquered the galaxy with honor? And they absolutely destroyed Markog, which was hilarious, I thought. They cut both his arms off and his legs, and he was still alive, like he was the Black Knight from Monty Python. Then they finally shot his head into a million itty-bitty pieces. Meanwhile, the Lion went off in pursuit of Seraphax, the sorcerer, while his space marines fought the Chaos Marines. And only at the end of the combat did they realize that he was no longer there and had to go off and find him. And that is where today's story begins, or resumes rather. So, this will likely be our final reading because we only have 3 chapters left, and I think an epilogue and an afterword. But yes, The Lion, Son of the Forest, chapter 31. The Lion pursues Seraphax like a hunter, with his quarry in his sights. He has no qualms about this. Some of his sons have remained as true as they can to their purpose. In this future, where they are hunted fugitives, others became wayward, but have now returned to him. The Lion does not judge them. He saw well enough in his own brothers how being too long removed from guidance could lead to poor decisions and selfishness. Even now, he cannot help but wonder how many of the Primarchs might have taken different courses had they been found sooner. What if Kurz had met their father before taking the first step towards establishing his empire of terror? What if Angron had been found before the butcher's nails had been inflicted upon him? Seraphax, however, is not lost. He has chosen his path, and it leads to a damnation of the soul from which there is no return. The lion is as certain of that as he is of anything. For all that he is a practical being grounded in the material universe, whatever is left of the warrior that was Lionel Johnson's Jean's son is now twisted beyond recognition, either a slave to the powers of chaos or willingly doing their work. Seraphax is a threat to humanity, and the lion has always exterminated such threats. He trails the fleeing sorcerer through the palace, cutting down the occasional beastman or other cultist that gets in his way. He is faster than Seraphax, but Seraphax knows the building better, and the lion is not so eager to end this that he intends to run headlong into a trap. Seraphax's sorcery has left the lion untouched, but he was still a warrior of the First Legion, and the lion knows better than to underestimate one of the Legionis Astartes. So it is that when he reaches the end of what was once a particularly grand corridor, now defiled with spatters of bodily fluids and hideous glyphs, and encountered a massive set of double doors, so richly carved and decorated that even the invaders' vandalisms have not completely marred their beauty. He does not charge through them unheedingly. Instead he enters cautiously, the armor luminous, poised to fire and fealty ready in his other hand. It is, or was, the throne room. On the other side is the dais, where the governor's throne still stands untouched. Seraphax clearly had his own designs for it, although the lion does not know whether the large silver mirror above it is the sorcerer's addition, and the sorcerer himself is nowhere to be seen. In the middle of the floor is a pit, surrounded by a wide terrace of tiled floor, and the daubed additions to those tiles bear far too great a resemblance to the sigils that decorate Seraphax's surplice for it to be coincidental. The lion is wary of any form of trap, but a sorcerous one would concern him the most. He has seen what warp sorcery can do, and while Seraphax's energy bolts might not be able to hurt him, he has no wish to get embroiled in a prepared ritual. On the other hand, what the lion has also learned about warp sorcery is that it is in its own way, as ordered as any physical structure. There is always an anchor point, something upon which the rest of the construct depends, and if that is destroyed or removed, then everything else fails, sometimes catastrophically. He scans the room quickly, trying not to look too closely or think too illogically, but instead see the patterns upon what they are centered. It is not the easiest thing for someone so attuned to detail, but a second's consideration gives him an answer. The mirror. The lion raises the armor luminous, and in that moment Seraphax rises into view out of the central pit, borne aloft on nothing more but sorcerous power, and unleashes a new bolt of energy at the lion's chest. This one does not dissipate before it strikes him. The lion is no stranger to pain, but this is a new and unpleasant variety of it. It feels as though someone has routed electrical current directly into his nervous system, not just flooding his muscles, his tendons, and his very bones with agony, or preventing them from responding to his will. He can overcome even this given a few moments, but Seraphax does not allow him that luxury. The sorcerer touches down on the edge of the terrace, and the heavy chains wrapped around his shoulders and over his chest spring into life, flashing through the air with the speed of striking serpents. The lion tries to twist aside from them and cut them from the air with fealty, but his body will not obey him quickly enough. The chains wrap around him, pinning his arms to his side and binding his legs. I feared you would recognize that my earlier strikes were not thrown in earnest, Seraphax says with a smile. But then I suppose you never were that familiar with pulling your punches, were you, father? That was what made you great, and it will make you great again. Come. He gestures, and the chains rise into the air, taking the lion with them. He struggles, but he can neither move nor break them, simple though they seem to be. They are not normal iron, those chains, science, Seraphax says. I will grant you that if a tech priest analysed them, then they would find nothing unusual other than the extraordinary purity of the iron used. But science does not tell you everything. You should be able to snap an iron chain without effort. But it is the process of their creation which gives them their strength, not the materials used. He pauses and purposes his lips. I suppose the same is true of Primarchs. Flesh and bone and blood and genes, and yet the Emperor created something truly remarkable. He gestures again, and the chains begin to lower the lion down into the pit. The floor is marked out in a sickeningly familiar 8-pointed star, each corner of which burns a brazier. The lion senses a presence behind him. As he is forced down to his knees, he is able to turn his head far enough to see a black armoured shape. For a moment he thinks that help is at hand. Then he realises that this warrior is none of the sons who came here with him. This, then, must be Baelor, Seraphax's ally. Do you know how much iron the body of an average human contains? Seraphax asks from above, and answers his own question. Not a lot. I am sure you saw the Astella, in orbit above us. The bones of the population, put to good use. However, I did not waste their blood either. He gestures to the chains. Not much from each subject, it is true, but when you have enough subjects... If you seek to horrify me with the tales of your deeds, then you forget to whom you are talking, the lion growls. You know full well that our legion murdered entire planets, entire species in the interests of humanity. And that is what I am doing, for the same purpose, Seraphax says, walking around the pit's edge to stand beneath the mirror. I had hoped to find some great hero of the Imperium for this, but I never dreamed that I would be able to seize a Primarch, and my own at that. Baelor, prepare him. Baelor moved forward and reached out for the lion's helm. Despite his best efforts, the lion is unable to prevent Baelor's fingers from finding the clasps and removing it. Baelor himself is wearing his own helmet, and so the lion cannot see his face. But the Dark Angel pauses for a moment after the lion's features are exposed to the air, as though taking in how much his gene sire has changed. You have been gone for so long, Seraphax says, shaking his head. The galaxy is riven, the Imperium is a shell. There is no hope for anything other than Abaddon's endless wars. The flame of humanity will sputter out and die, and the stars will be reclaimed by the sort of Xenos bastards we should have eradicated 10,000 years ago. I can do nothing to stop this. You can do nothing to stop this, Primarch though you are. Only one being exists who can. The Emperor. The lion stares at him, mistrust and hatred warring with hope. He still lives. The Emperor still lives. You know this. Seraphax's smile is like lightning. There and gone again, almost before it is seen. The warp tells me many things, and some are not to be trusted. But yes, Father, the Emperor still clings to existence on the Golden Throne. Were that not the case, there would be such a disturbance in the Immaterium, the bluntest of humans could feel it. Even on this side of the Great Rift. No, he survives, and I will be sending you to see him. The lion blinks in shock. Has he misjudged the situation somehow? Is Seraphax truly as forsaken as he seems, or is he merely delusional? Yet his words do not feel like disconnected rantings. One of the Imperium's many mistakes was imprisoning the Master of Mankind on the Golden Throne, Seraphax announces. He raises a finger. Baelor, the Fever Blade. A long knife appears in Baelor's hand. The edge glints in the shifting light of the brazier's flames. The blade itself has an unpleasant sheen to it. Baelor slashes with it and opens a cut on the lion's cheek. The lion feels the sting of the wound, and then his flesh knitting back together as his father's gene crafting does its work. But Baelor's blade is now wet. The fallen flicks the knife, and drops of blood fall onto the design of the 8-pointed star on which the lion kneels. The Emperor must be allowed to die, Seraphax says, raising his staff. The drops of blood begin to smoke, and the smoke weaves outwards along the lines marked into the floor. Death is only the beginning for one such as him. Only then can he ascend fully into the warp, as the true god he is. Once there, no longer enfeebled by the anchor of his broken mortal body, he will destroy the ruinous powers and the wailing deities of the Xenos races, and oversee humanity's second great crusade. The lion stares at him. It sounds ridiculous, fanciful, foolish. And yet the forces worshipped by the followers of Chaos are undoubtedly powerful, foul though they are. To label them as gods offends the lion's sensibilities, but there is no other convenient word that will encompass them. In that case, while the lion does not and will never consider his father a god, might the term not similarly be used for an immensely potent psychic who lives for millennia before revealing himself to humanity, and has now persisted for 10,000 more years after taking what should have been a mortal wound? For a psyker capable of sending a psychic signal out through the warp so powerful that most of the galaxy was able to use it to navigate, who created such remarkable beings as the lion himself, bringing about life in a process which must have involved more than just the skilled manipulation of organic matter. I hoped Abaddon would kill the Emperor, Seraphax continues, but I do not believe that even the gods themselves know what he is up to. Regardless, he has not yet taken Terra because he wishes to batter down its gates. I, on the other hand, intend to walk through them unchallenged. Smoke from the lion's blood reaches the braziers, and the flames shoot upwards. The lion swallows, fighting a sudden dryness in his throat. It is fascinating how the soul and the body intertwine, Seraphax says. Yet they can be separated. A sufficiently powerful soul, bound with the correct processes, can become a fearsome weapon, a tame demon of a sort. The soul of a Primarch is one of the mightiest spirits to roam the galaxy, so just imagine what I could do with that at my command. The lion coughs as something wrenches inside his chest with a sensation of overwhelming wrongness. His breaths feel thin, as though there are holes in his lungs. I will have to leave some behind, though, Seraphax says. Sweat beads his forehead now, and the Xenos skull that tops his staff is glowing with an eldritch light, enough to fool everyone, but not enough to stop me from exercising my control over your mortal shell, after all. Who stands a chance of gaining an audience with the Emperor himself, other than one of his long-lost sons? I had hoped that a mighty general or a chapter master would suffice, but a Primarch, even the custodian guard, would hesitate to stop you. The lion is trying to fight Seraphax's sorcery, but he barely knows what he is fighting, or how to do so. It feels as though someone is trying to pull his skeleton out through his skin, and all he can do is concentrate as hard as he can on remaining whole, and himself. Why resist? Seraphax shouts angrily. Is this what you want your life to be? Meaningless protection of meaningless worlds while the darkness closes in? I am damned already, but I am giving you the chance to do one final great deed. Rather than slaying a single foe, or even an entire species of them, you will be killing the very thing that keeps humanity shackled and downtrodden. The silver mirror seems to be growing larger and brighter, while somehow not changing. The lion cannot look away from it. He can feel the artifact somehow. The surface is incredibly smooth, yet contains infinite complexity. It is stretching him out, pulling him across its surface, and letting him sink into it, twisting and locking him away from his own body. The lion wavers in that 1 second, because now the surface of the mirror is showing him the true scale of the galaxy, and he starts to wonder how much difference even he can make. He is a great general, and a deadly warrior, it is true, but he does not know how to heal the rift that has opened across 100,000 light years of space. He cannot defeat it with an army, and he cannot pierce its heart with a blade. So what use is he? He woke up after betrayal and injury to find things were even worse than when he had left them, and he has no solution. It would be so easy to let go, to abandon control and let himself be used. He was only ever his father's instrument. In any case, is this so different? Then the mirror pulls his consciousness up further until it brushes against the Ostella, and the lion recoils. It is the mirror's counterpart, a grotesque construction of endless angles that are scented with death. It is not just the killing that repulses him, it is the foul energies he can feel wreathed throughout it. The touch of them brings him back to himself somewhat. He is the lion. He is a son of the Emperor, and he will live or die as himself, and as a father to his own sons who have placed their trust in him, when many of them had little cause to do so. He blinks, the silvery sheen of the mirror fades a little, and he is back on his knees staring defiantly up at Seraphax. I had hoped you would see the necessity, and surrender willingly, the sorcerer snarls, but I can splinter your soul and drag it out of you, with or without your consent. He slams the butt of his staff down on the tiles. The braziers flare once more, and the lion convulses as another spasm of pain racks him. He bites down and glares, daring his Gean son to do his worst. Because if this is a battle of wills, then the lion knows he can triumph. As it turns out, he may not have to. Seraphax looks up, startled, then brings his staff across in front of himself in a warding gesture. A moment later, there is a thunder of gunfire, and the air in front of the sorcerer shimmers as it absorbs a rain of bolt shells and plasma blast. The lion hears Baylor snarl, and the fallen sheathes the fever blade, unclamps his bolter, and runs for one of the access points to the pit. He disappears just as Seraphax unleashes a bolt of his own arcane energy. The scream rings out as one of the lion's sons is caught by it. However, the lion's attention is grabbed by something else. The chains around him have loosened slightly. End chapter 31. I think that's a very interesting character exploration, and I absolutely understand that moment of weakness there. I feel like that was a very cool kind of temptation. Oh my word! Welcome, Shiny Cat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm already the bean. I am already the bean, but I will give you Padoru. Padoru. It might not be the season for this, though. God, there's so many. Okay. Okay. We're having all of the redeems. Okay, so this is my Padoru model. I got it for Christmas. And then this is my normal model. Hi. It's not Piss Tiger! Fuck you, Fern! It's not Piss Tiger, okay? It's not. It's not Piss Tiger. It's not. Not. Look at me. Do I look like piss? Tell me, chat. But hi. Hi. We are just having a brief intermission between chapters so I can hydrate. It's not Piss Tiger. How are we all doing? Are we all having a nice time? I'm really enjoying this book. We're so close to... That was a very short... That was a very short, short chapter. It didn't feel very short. Hi, Demi! I've literally just finished my coffee, but I will have some juice as well. Get a shout out of... I need to install Spout 2 at some point. I need to set that up. We shall probably tomorrow. We've got the charity stream tomorrow, which I'm excited for. It's a very, very... I've got some cool stuff. I've got some new redeems planned tomorrow, which I hope you'll enjoy. But they will be unlocked when we reach certain dono goals. They'll be quite low, though. It's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a fun, fun time. Never done a charity stream before. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's not Piss Tiger Metal. It's not Piss Tiger. Not. But yes, shall we continue? Shall we continue? How long is... That's not a very long chapter either. That's also... How long is this last chapter? Okay, a good chunk of this is the last chapter. And then we've got the epilogue and the afterward, don't we? Cool. Lion, Son of the Forest. Chapter 32. Shoot the mirror, the lion bellows over the crump roar of bolters and the scorching sizzle of plasma. His brief out-of-body experience confirmed to him that this is the key to the sorcerer's plans. And regardless of whether or not the sorcerer would have been successful in his attempt to split the lion's soul and wrench most of it away, completely removing his ability to do so has to be the priority. His sons do not question his instructions. Seraphax howls in rage and then lashes out with his staff as though to knock their shots out of the air. But it seems that his ability to shrug off weapons fire is reduced when he attempts to extend the range beyond his own immediate vicinity. The silvered metal begins to buckle as bolter shells strike home, the impact sounding like dissonant bells, and the perfect reflection the mirror casts becoming distorted. However, the lion sees something in the dents and craters that now mar the mirror's surface. Shadows with eyes and claws and teeth. Then a plasma blast strikes the mirror dead center, and the molten droplets of the mirror begin to fall directly onto Seraphax. The Seraphax screams as a white-hot lump lands on his head, but the fire that covers half of his skull simply sweeps across to engulf it. Now there is nothing to be seen of his features except the flames, and the other drops of silver are swirling around his armor as though they have a mind of their own. Within moments, his surplice has burned away. His black armor is edged with glinting light. Silver claws erupt from the ends of his fingers, punching through the ceramite and then melding with it. New walls and decorations of incomprehensible complexity spread across his battle plate, like creeping frost over a window. The lion tears his gaze away, even though his eyes and mind yearn to explore and understand the patterns, because some intuition tells him that within them lurk the secrets of the universe, just waiting to be discovered. You fools, Seraphax snarls, his voice no longer remotely human. It sounds like a metal-stringed harp being sawn in half. A claw-tipped hand sweeps up to casually swat aside a bolt shell fired at the flaming ruin of his face. You have doomed me, yourselves, and the entire galaxy, the sorcerer adds, as wings of blue-silver erupt from his back and spread wide. Faces appear in the mirrored surface of the wings, the faces of those of the lion's sons who came with him to Sable. Their features reflect the screams that erupt from above him, accompanied by the clatter of ceramite as warriors fall to their knees or land on supine on the tiles. Space Marines can weather a great deal of physical pain and suffering, but there are some things against which their enhanced constitution gives them little assistance. and the predations of the warp are one of them. Powerful muscles and hardened bones are no defense against when the psyche is being torn from its housing. Baelor appears behind Seraphax, having found his way up to the dais level. He is holding his bolter ready, but pauses and does not fire when he sees what is occurring. Although his helm hides his face, something about his stance implies shock. The lion strains once more against the chains which hold him, but while there is some give to them now, he still cannot break free. He hears a yell, and a one-handed, black-armoured body topples from above to land in the pit not far from the lion. Bevadan, the lion barks. The former librarian fumbles at his helmet with his remaining hand and claws it loose. The face he turns on the lion is racked with pain. "Forgive me, Lord," Bevadan murmurs, now unmoving. "He is too strong, and I have not used my powers in decades. Bevadan, I am secured by change upon which there is some mystic binding," the lion says quickly and quietly. "Seraphax's concentration is weakening, and I cannot loosen them sufficiently. I need your gift." "I am not yet so overcome as I make out," Bevadan says through gritted teeth. "Be ready. He's pulling my spirit from me. But this connects me to him. I can turn this into a weapon, but for a few moments only before I am gone." There are many things the lion would like to say to his son, but there is seldom time for warriors to bid each other farewell as they would wish, so he merely nods. Then Bevadan sets his jaw, and his eyes ablaze with light as he stops fighting Seraphax's spell and forces all of his power at the sorcerer at once. Seraphax shouts "No" as the glowing in his wings flares chaotically. The sorcerer staggers, lashing out wildly as Bevadan's consciousness burns into him, but he regains control of himself almost immediately. However, it was enough. The lion rises to his feet, and this time, when he strains, the iron shatters, as it always should have done. His leap takes him up out of the pit in one bound, directly for Seraphax. The sorcerer swings his staff, but his reflexes are no match for the lion's speed. The lion slashes with fealty and slices the staff in two, then crashes into Seraphax and bears him into the ground. "Release them," the lion bellows, reversing the grip on his sword and placing the point over Seraphax's heart. Seraphax laughs. "The time was that you would have already slain me and called the death of 20 dark angels an acceptable loss." "That was 10,000 years ago," the lion growls, trying not to look at the agonized expressions staring imploringly at him from out of Seraphax's wings. "I will see no more of my sons die this day." He does not know what killing Seraphax would do. All Lionel Johnson knows is that he owes more to the warriors behind him than leaving them to an uncertain fate while he eradicates one more enemy. The so-called fallen are giving him a second chance, just as much as he is them. He brought them here with appeals for them to do something good, and he cannot let that be nothing more than dying so that he might live. "Your terms are acceptable," Seraphax says, and a blaze of silver force erupts from his wings. It strikes the lion and knocks him sprawling, numbing his fingers so that his weapons slip from his grasp and skitter away across the floor. He scrambles back to his feet, but finds himself anchored to the ground. Sigils painted onto the tiles flare to life and lock him in place. "You thought I would not have prepared the ground on which I was going to face you," Seraphax snarls as he rises. "You disappoint me, my Lord Lion." He spreads his wings wide once more, and the faces of the fallen disappear. In their place the lion sees his own, repeated again and again, old and racked with pain, and he feels the tug on his soul once more, now tinged with hungry claws. "You talk to me about disappointment," he roars, still fighting against the hex which holds him in place. "You are a mockery of all we ever stood for. Take my soul, then, if you can. You must keep Seraphax's attention on him. If he does so, perhaps others may recover enough to resume the battle. Now the lives of his loyal sons do not hang in the balance. The Lion will have no hesitation in ending Seraphax's. And all he needs is one more distraction. Seraphax takes a step closer. That was the plan originally, but my foolish brothers had to interfere, he snorts with laughter. Brothers, I'm sure you can sympathize with my frustration on that front. However, I am simply doing what must be done, no matter the cost. Same as we always did. He takes another step. I will have your soul, my lord. But they shall join you in servitude. Together, there is nothing we cannot do. Baelor. Seraphax stops and stiffens, and something sharp parts the ceramite of his breastplate from within. The Lion tenses, ready for something even worse to be ripping its way out of the sorcerer's body. But the wrenching at his soul dies away, and he recognizes the foreign object as something even more unexpected. The tip of the fever blade. Sorry about that, chat. Should be set to 3 seconds. It should be set to 3 seconds. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why chat. It's saying 14 hours. Did I get timed down? Who got timed out? Hi, MQ. Okay. I don't normally interrupt the chapters. But is it fine? Is chat fine now? Chat should be fine now, right? Okay. The long knife remains where it is for a moment, while Seraphax shudders around it. Then flesh, bone, and ceramite yields before it, as the sorcerer tears a massive wound in his own body to whirl around and plunge his silver claws into the Dark Angel behind him. With a scream of rage, Seraphax's attacker cries out in pain. The Lion sees the knife flash dully again, severing the sorcerer's wings. Seraphax collapses and convulses, and the edges of his wounds begin to creep outwards, everything dissolving and boiling away into foul-smelling vapor. Baelor falls to his knees, bleeding copiously from multiple claw marks in his torso, which show no signs of clotting. He throws down the fever blade and removes his helmet. The face revealed is a world apart from the fire-ravaged features of the sorcerer, but there is no mark of mutation or disfigurement that the Lion can see, other than the small marks and scars any warrior might have accumulated over time. However, the wound of grief is deeper than any other mark. The glyphs on the floor stutter and fade, and the Lion can move again. He approaches Baelor cautiously. The Seraphax's blade is clearly a potent weapon, and it is still within Baelor's reach. But the warrior makes no move to take it up again. Instead, as the fires die away across Sarafax's head and leave only bare skin behind, he leans down to kiss the sorcerer's brow before the flesh begins to disintegrate entirely. "My son," the lion says. Baelor looks up at him with haunted eyes, but an expression of grim acceptance on his face. "My lord." The lion lowers his head in a gesture of acknowledgement. "Thank you." Baelor swallows. "I followed him for so long. He was my captain, my brother, my friend, and everything he did have a purpose. I believed he knew what was right. We were traitors, lost in time. All the battles we waged, all the hateful followers he gathered, were simply the only way he had a chance to get close to a mighty hero of the Imperium. Even when he told me the details of his plan, he said we would be freeing the Emperor, not killing him. I thought he must be right, because he knew so much more about the warp than I do. Nothing in this galaxy makes sense anymore anyway." The lion nods slowly. "What made you change your mind?" he asks as gently as he can. "He was no longer Sarafax," Baelor said quietly, looking down again. "Not really. My brother held on to himself for so long, but when I heard him speak and saw how he had been altered, I knew he was gone. And you protected my brothers from him. That is not the lion who attacked Caliban. They are with me because they choose to be," the lion says. "The day may come when I have to ask them to give their lives for a cause. But it will never be simply because it is convenient for me for them to do so. The galaxy might call them fallen, but I shall call these sons of mine the risen." He extends his hand. "Rise, Baelor." Baelor looks up sharply. "Lord, I am a traitor and a heretic. I believe it was the only right way to do what was right, but my legion is my responsibility," the lion interrupts him. "I did not see what festered in the hearts of my sons, or my former brothers of the Order. Had I done so, all this might have been avoided. You turned from that course, of your own will." Baelor blinks once, then he sets his jaw and nods, and rises to his feet. "But too late," the lion nods sadly. "But too late." He reaches out and clasps Baelor's forearm. "I wish I could trust that you might have been able to advise us on how best to destroy your allies. But the wiles of the chaos run deep. However, know that in coming to the aid of my sons and me today, you have earned my gratitude and my forgiveness." Baelor smiles, but pain catches at the edge of it. "I do not believe I will survive the wounds that Sarafax dealt me. In any case, I would ask for a cleaner death first." The lion picks up fealty, but hesitates despite knowing that Baelor cannot be trusted and must die. And despite the fact that Baelor himself has asked for it, the lion said that he would see no more of his sons die this day, and he is loath to prove himself a liar so quickly. Zabriel limps up beside him. The former destroyer is obviously battered, and looks to have a broken arm, judging by his splintered vambrace. "Baelor, Zabriel," Baelor responds. Meeting his brother's gaze with some effort, "You killed Sarafax," Zabriel says, before Baelor can say anything further. Actions speak louder than words. "Thank you." He looks up at the lion. "Lord, I can undertake this duty, if it is your wish." The lion shakes his head. "No. Fealty is too heavy for you. With only one arm, and Baelor deserves the clean death he wishes, and as I said," he continues, "my legion is my responsibility." Absolute focus, The lion brings his blade up and strikes in one smooth motion. The powered edge of it severs Baelor's head from his body in an instant. Bright red blood fountains from the stump of the fallen's neck. As the body collapses, the lion allows himself a second of sorrow, as he looks at what remains of his two sons, who fell into darkness and treachery. Then he raises his voice. Cadaran, does your flamer still have fuel? Aye, Lord, Cadaran says, though he is unsteady on his feet, weak, and wrung out after fighting Seraphax's attempts to wrench his spirit from his body. Burn as much of this as you can, the lion orders. Then we must depart before reinforcements arrive. He does not relish the effort of summoning his forests again, but it is the only way out for him and his sons. This victory is significant. There is much we have left to do. End. Chapter 32. That was such a cool ending to those characters. I really liked that. It's going very quickly, but then again, I think the lion's share is about to come. Yes, the lion's share, as it were, is about to come. Hi, Haru. Avocado. Avocado. This face. Oh, was I happy? I hope you guys are enjoying this book. Genuinely one of my favorites that I've read in a long, long time. Yes, Punk. Is the floof. Is chat, like, fixed now? It's not putting people on, like, a 14-hour timeout or something. Catcan has some uranium as a treat. Okay, cool. So chat is working. Gatto. 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 You guys want cat cam? I can give you cat cam if you want. Tiger broke the chat. I didn't break the chat! You miss cuddling with Haru. Well, bitch, you know where to go if you want to cuddle my cats. Come on. No, cat, no, no. Do not play with the ribbon on the book. No. No, cat. No. 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 I broke the chat and not in a sexual way. Shocking, I know. We will have cat cam. I can cat cam go. Go here. Yeah. Cat can has some Light of the God Emperor as a treat. Yes. Yes, she can. I'm very happy with these models. I need to paint more. I need to like spend like a day doing batch painting. Because it's a very... Space Marines are so much quicker to paint than Sisters of Battle. Like, they take barely any time by comparison. Because they're just a lot simpler and chunkier, so it's easier to pick out any details that are on them. But yeah, we shall do the thing at some point. I'm gonna be painting some Dark Angels on Friday's stream, which will go along with these and this book. Entire day stream of batch painting. No, that's boring. Batch painting is not is not particularly fun. And so I wouldn't necessarily want to do a whole day streaming. Then again, I could just like do an unarchived hangout stream and just put some dumb videos on in the background while I paint and just hang out with chat. That could be fun. Doing it that way might work. Otherwise, I'm just like, because I'm literally just sitting around watching YouTube while I paint anyway. But I do that kind of painting. I might do that. Yeah, I might do that. Depending. Maybe that'll be what I do for like the donathon if it like goes on really long. But yeah, that's a thing. Subway Surfers video to hold people's attention. What's Subway Surfers? I don't know what Subway Surfers is. Look at her. She's doing the loaf. Okay, well, clearly that's going to be a stream at some point, Mathor. Now I feel like I've offended you by not knowing what it is. Have I offended you by not knowing what Subway Surfers is? Is it where people try and balance themselves on speeding trains without holding onto rails? Because I do that. That's a fun time. I have only fallen over as a child. Okay. I think this is the final chapter. Final chapter, epilogue, afterward. Okay. That was a bug that flew into your room. Well, that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, I feel like I've offended you by not knowing what Subway Surfers are. It's a mobile game. Oh, I don't play mobile games. Imagine playing games on your phone. Lol. No. No, no. No, no. It's one of those run and switch between 3 lanes kinds of games. Oh, that one of those. Yeah, no, I couldn't. I tried. Yeah, no, those aren't for me. God, I haven't played one of those in at least 10 years. Yeah, no, I know the kind of game you mean. Like, that was a very popular genre, and it had a bunch of different clones. But yeah, no, it wasn't my kind of thing. I get why people like it, though. I probably do recognize the game. I probably do. But I probably played it like a long time ago and I've just forgotten because it's not really my thing these days. But yeah. Yeah, no, I know the one you mean. I know the one you mean, Methyl. Yeah. Yeah. It became a meme now to put into other videos to hold people's short attention span. Well, I may do that. But I'll probably actually just put interesting things that I actually want to watch on in the background. Yeah. Unarchived stream. That'd be fun. Nice chill unarchived stream with batch painting stuff and hanging out. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Shall we read the last chapter before the epilogue and all that extra stuff at the end of the book? Yeah? Yeah? I'm gonna puddle bigger. I've become embiggened. I wish that I could tilt a bit more. Model. But that is a problem for when we get a future rig. The Lion, Son of the Forest, Chapter 33. Without Seraphax, the 10,000 eyes have splintered as each warlord seeks to fill the vacuum left by his death. The Lion should be satisfied. His slowly increasing alliance of human worlds has been hunting down and eliminating the different elements one by one. Still, he cannot help but wonder if the naked power struggle upon which he is capitalizing is simply a mirror of what happened to the Imperium after the Emperor was interred on the Golden Throne. What's done is done. The Lion can do nothing about the past. But the present is another matter. The Lion's protectorate is expanding, gradually taking in more and more systems. Only the ones who want to join. The Lion keeps reiterating. His forces are stretched thin, defending their own territory against raiders without trying to subjugate populations who will resist. However, most have welcomed the arrival of other humans after their isolation, and none who have met with the Lion in person have refused him. No matter how deliberately unwarlike his bearing has been. In contrast, he has been hailed as a hero, a rescuer, a god. He has stepped back from that, always, but it is inescapable. The Emperor has seen as a divine being, and so, in the reckoning of today's galaxy, his sons must by definition be at least semi-divine. It matters not that the Emperor always said he was merely a man, or that the Primarchs were creations of science rather than the combination of DNA through crude biological means. The Lion has been left with the option of endlessly repeating the same arguments when he knows that those to whom he is speaking will simply assume that he is being modest, or letting them believe what they wish to believe. In his lower moods, he has considered ordering punitive measures against the most vocal proponents of his deification. But then he remembers Gilliman's account of Monarchia. If people are so eager to find a god nearby, rather than the distant figure of the Emperor on Terra, then better Lionel Johnson than the alternatives. However, he faces a different challenge. He has left orders that he is not to be disturbed, and has returned to the mist-filled forests that bear so much resemblance to his homeworld. He has not gone looking for the castle which houses the wounded king. He does not feel like he belongs there, nor that he is welcome, at least until he finds the correct question. If the Watcher in the Dark's words are to be believed, however, there is something else that he has seen far more than once amongst the mighty trees, and it is that for which he now searches. It does not take him long. Indeed, it previously appeared to him, even when he was not looking at it. The forest's geography seems to respond to his needs and desires, at least to an extent, and this particular landmark has been a constant. He does not even know what it is, but its recurrence has convinced him that he should find out. The start of the path is the same as before, a route of short grass hemmed in on either side by bushes. The start of the path is the same as before. A route of... Cat, can you please stop? Can you please stop? The cat is pressing buttons and making my PC do strange things. The start of the path is the same as before, a route of short grass hemmed in on either side by bushes and tree trunks. In the distance, he can see the roof of pale curved stone, and standing next to the path and standing next to the path is the Watcher in the dark. You told me before that I was not strong enough for this, the lion says. You were not. And now? That remains to be seen. The lion nods. It will do. He's not sure what he was expecting, but the path itself offers him no obstacles. It is an easy route, almost enjoyable by the standards of these woods. It is not long before the lion brings his destination into view, and he is able to look upon it properly for the first time. The marble dome stands atop a square stone building. But this is not like the king's castle. That was a structure which fitted its surroundings, for it was not so different in nature to the fortifications raised on Caliban to protect its people against the threats that the world held. This is almost alien in comparison. The exact fit of the stone, the cornices carved into a repeated flowing shape, the mighty columns flanking the black arch of the doorway. This is the architecture of the Imperium, not Caliban. It does not belong here. The lion approaches cautiously. He does not know how such a structure could come to be here. But then again, he's still not entirely certain where here is. He theorizes that it is some manner of space adjacent to the warp, a halfway house through which the distance and time of real space could be bypassed to some extent. But that is merely guesswork. Regardless, the building must have been constructed to contain something. The lion intends to find out what that is. There is no door, but the interior is so dark that not even the lion's eyes can make out what is within at first. It is not until he is quite close that he sees the faint hint of a glow, and that is only for a moment. Mainly because someone has stepped in front of it. Despite himself, the lion's jaw drops when the figure steps out into the gentle, mist-shrouded light. Blonde hair, so much like the lion's own, but tangled and part-braided, and not faded with age. Ornate armor, so much like the lion's own, but the grey of death in winter rather than the black of night. The ferocity that lurks within the lion's heart is mirrored here, but worn on the surface in the flashing blue eyes, the elongated canine teeth that are exposed, as the upper lips lifts in a snarl. Relief, anger, joy, and alarm all swell within the lion's heart. Russ? Hello, traitor, growls Lehman Russ, and launches himself forward with his hands reaching for the lion's throat. The lion wastes no more time with words. He has fought Lehman Russ before, and he knows that such things will only end when the Wolf King is either incapacitated or chooses to stop of his own accord. He sidesteps Russ's lunge, then swings a fist. He knocked Russ unconscious once, on Doolan, but his brother was laughing then. Russ is not laughing now. He swats the blow aside and slams a punch of his own into the lion's chest. His face twists in rage. The foolish see the savagery of the space wolves and dismiss it as nothing more than that. The lion knows better. There is a calculated rage within his brother that longs to spring forward and lay waste. But Russ usually keeps it under tight control and only lets it loose when sanctioned. He is no mindless berserker. Every action has a purpose, which is destruction of his enemies as efficiently as possible. The lion meets him toe-to-toe, furious concentration against concentrated fury. Punches are thrown and dodged or ducked, or land with the crash of ceramite on ceramite. Hands grapple, seeking purchase. The lion shakes off Russ's grip on his forearm and pivots using his own hip as leverage to hurl the Wolf King off his feet and into one of the columns. Traitor, Lionel Johnson demands, as Russ picks himself back up. He knows better than to think he can talk his brother down, but the accusation stings. You know that is not true. Then why does it bother you? Russ says, with an ugly laugh. But it is not Russ's voice. The shape now rising to his feet stands taller than Russ ever did. A mighty figure encased in a massive suit of Terminator plate is now where the Wolf King stood a moment before, the fingers of one hand long and deadly. You are dead, the lion tells Horace. Russ's fate I did not know for sure, but you are dead. This is some warp trickery. His heart sinks, because even a furious, vengeful Russ carried the prospect of a future in which they might have been able to resolve their differences. An ancient Terran sage said that a man can never truly die while his name is still spoken, Horace declares, gesturing with his talon. He moves and sounds just as the lion remembers, with effortless grace. With effortless grace and a force of personality, just as the lion remembers. That is practically a weapon in and of itself. And so I will live for as long as humanity survived, because I am the mirror against which all my brothers are now compared. You know that. You have done it every day since you first learned of my actions. You can never again truly be yourself, because you will only ever be focused on not being me. The lion clenches his fist. You may not be Horace, but wearing his face does not reduce my desire to see you destroyed. He makes the first move this time, heedless of the fact that Horace was powerful enough to mortally wound the Emperor. That was a different Horace. One swollen with foul boons from the Chaos Gods. This is the lion's memory of Horace. And mighty, though the much-loved Lupercal was, the lion remembers what Gilliman told him once back on Macragge. That Horace had resented the lion. He knew that they were equals. Even with his massive armor, the serpent's scales, Horace was still deceptively fast. He wards off the lion's blows, laughing as though they are friends engaging in sport, then lashes out with the backhand that staggers the lion into a column against which he threw Russ. Horace snarls and lunges with the elongated fingers of his talon, seeking to impale the lion against the stone. The lion ducks, and as Horace's blades punch deep into the masonry, he slams his fist into the War Master's face. Now it is Horace's turn to stagger, raising his other hand to shield his face as he does so. When he lowers it again, his features have changed. His skin is paler, and cables snake out of his skull into his armor. Well anticipated, Perturabo says in a voice like a leaden hammer. A shame you lacked that foresight on Diamat. You might at least have found a brother for whom I even cared, the lion retorts. He boosts off the column behind him into a flying punch, but Perturabo catches him in mid-air and slams him into the ground, then balls both fists together and brings them down at the lion's face. The lion rolls aside and lashes out with his legs, sweeping Perturabo's feet from underneath him. But when his brother lands on his back, his armor is white, and it is the Khan who vaults straight back up to his feet. Had you been quicker, you might have reacted to Horace's treachery in time, Jagatai Khan says. He feints a strike with his right hand, then lashes out with the straight fingers of his left to tear open the skin on the lion's forehead. He follows up with a kick thrust straight into the lion's midsection, The lion catches it and hurls the Khan to one side. And if you had been smarter, you would have seen it coming, intones Magnus the Red. The crimson-haired giant is as tall on one knee as the lion is standing, and his hand closes around the lion's skull with an agonizing grip. The lion manages to prise the fingers apart, but Magnus's other hand punches him full in the face and sends him flying backwards. Now I know you are a fraud, the lion spits. Magnus never hit that hard. He ducks under the giant's grasp and hauls himself up behind him on one of the horns adorning the Crimson King's armor, then lands a blow to the top of his adversary's head. A hand reaches up to grab him and throws him to the ground once more. Perhaps you are merely getting old, Mortarion grasps, stamping down on the lion's chest, so hard that he is momentarily winded even inside his armor. Worn down and broken, the lion evades the Death Lord's second blow, but as he is scrambling back to his feet, Mortarion throws a punch that clips him around the head and sends him staggering. He is only wobbled for a moment, and recovers his equilibrium to grab a handful of dirt to throw into Mortarion's eyes. The Lord of the Death Guard shakes his head, blinded, and reaches out with one hand to ward off whatever attack is coming. The lion grabs his hand and uses it to haul himself up and plant a kick straight into the Pale King's face. The lion drops back to the ground, but it is no longer the drab colours of Mortarion's armour that confront him. Rogel Dawn raises her fists clad in the same burnished gold as that which armoured his father. The Emperor never trusted you, Dawn grates, lashing out with two quick punches. The lion should have been able to dodge them both, but he is starting to feel the effects of being repeatedly battered by his brothers, or at least by a being which is mimicking them. And the second lands flush. That is why he sent you so far away into the galaxy's darkest corners, while keeping me close, Dawn continues, reaching out to grab and strangle. The lion seizes one of his arms and pivots, throwing Dawn over his shoulder, dumping the Praetorian of Terror onto his back. You think he trusted you with his secrets? Alfarius laughs from the ground. I know secrets you could never guess at first. Arms seize the lions from behind, wrapping around his neck and hauling him around in a half circle, but he reaches up to prise them loose and drops down to one knee to throw his attacker off again. Alfarius rolls up to his feet, no longer smiling. The version of him that had been lying on the ground is nowhere to be seen. You never did have the stomach for a fair fight, the lion growls. And when the Lord of Serpents throws a punch, he twists Alfarius' arm around and drives him face first into the column which bears the scars of Horus's talons. The impact pleases the lion so much he does it again, and then tries to do it a third time. This time, however, the arm braces itself against the pillar stronger than his. A fair fight, Angron roars, throwing the lion off. He piles forward in a furious rush of blows that have all of Russ's savagery, but none of the control. The lion is struck in the chest, in the ribs, in his chest again, a glancing blow off his shoulder, and then in the face. Something hits him from behind, and he realizes it is the wall of the building against which he has stumbled. He does not try to dodge the strike that he knows is coming, not against Agron, but he throws himself low instead, clipping the onrushing Red Angel's knee and sending him head first into the wall with a crash. The lion gets back up and tries to throw a punch of his own, but it is caught by a hand of metal. Where is your vengeance? Ferrus Manus bellows, as his other fist slams into the lion's stomach. Where is your guile? Growls Korax, snapping the lion's head back with a kick. You were never good enough, Fulgrim sneers, jabbing him in the throat. Yet now you accept the worship due to a god, Lorgar says, tutting. The lion lashes out for him, but the blue-armored foot trips him as he lands on his face. You dared to preach to me about my fault, but when the chance came to return to Terra, You decided to burn some planets instead, Rabute Gilliman says from above him. Red armored fingers lift the lion's chin. Had you not done so, would I have lived? Sanguinius asks sadly. The angel walks out of view, and an incredible strength hoists the lion upwards. Would I have died? Vulcan hisses in his ear. And then the lion is tossed through the air towards the building's door. He strikes the lintel on the way through and crashes down into the shadow. Head whirling, the lion struggles up again, straining with all his senses. The light from outside is faint, but even so, it does not penetrate into the building interior like it should. He cannot see, and he knows what is coming. First there is a presence behind him on his right. As soft as thought, he whirls towards it, but it is gone. There is another, to his left, as light as memory. That disappears as well. And then the darkness in front of him splits to reveal a pale face in which sit two dark orbs of eyes that see the future, eyes that have no pity. At least I knew which of my legion deserved to die, whispers Conrad Kurz, the Night Haunter. They all did, the lion growls. Kurz smiles, and I knew that. He fades backwards again, disappearing from sight. The lion is well aware of his brother's hunting tactics, and turns for the door, expecting to see the Night Haunter swooping at him. Instead, Kurz's talons puncture the armor to pierce his ribs from behind. They called me a fiend because I terrorize worlds, but you just killed them, Kurz hisses into the lion's ear. Through the agony, my reputation made planets capitulate when they heard of my approach, but you dropped from the sky unannounced and burned the very soil to ash. He shifts his fingers, sparking a new wave of pain through the lion's body. Why is it, brother, that you are a hero, and I am a villain simply because I left some wretches alive to talk about me? The lion manages to get his hands on Kurz's and wrenches the claws out, then staggers away. While he turns, the Night Haunter is nowhere to be seen. I am not a hero, the lion says through gritted teeth. I did what was required of me by the master of mankind, and the man I believed knew best. I was a necessary part of his plan to unify and save humanity. So noble, Kurz whispers from the darkness. You are a villain, the lion continues, flexing his fingertips, because you enjoyed what you did, and you did it even when you had been ordered not to. Perhaps father did his work too well, Kurz hisses, and lunges into view with his talons aimed at the lion's eyes. The lion rolls aside from this strike, and comes up against the wall. You can only blame the Emperor, because you refuse to take responsibility for your own actions, the lion says, watching for Kurz's inevitable next attack. You like to say that you could see the future, but you let yourself be a slave to it instead of forging your own path. He stands up, cautiously. Father has not failed yet. Not while I am alive to protect this galaxy. You know nothing of which you speak, Kurz snarls. Too close for comfort, yet not close enough to place. Perhaps, the lion says. But you are long dead, and I am through bandying words with ghosts. The light he saw from outside flares up again from the wall behind him. He turns and sees it, emanating from the kite shield which hangs there. It is richly decorated and embossed with an icon of an eagle crowned with laurels. The lion reaches for it, and his fingers touch it. Fire. Fury. He stands on a battlefield with the shield on his arm under the dark sky, but he cannot see all the stars, and he knows their names. And he can feel everything around him. All the humans hurting and bleeding and dying, all the Xenos, those abominations, and all the tiny creatures burrowing through the soil, and the trees, and the grass, and the wind. He can feel it all. It is all connected, a web of power, And this is not overwhelming. This is just how he lives, instant to instant to instant. The lion staggers. The shield is on his arm. He knows the touch of that mind. He has felt it before. Father? He is dead, you fool. Conrad Kurz hisses, and the shadows split again to give birth to his rangy figure. Stabbing for the lion with his talons, the lion brings up the Emperor's shield, and Kurz's claws clash futilely against it. Kurz, or the thing wearing his face, the thing the lion's father set to guard this place, to keep away the unworthy, shrieks and recoils, but not far enough. The lion can feel the energy running through the shield, and feels within it the echo of the Emperor's aegis that covered the Imperial Palace on Terra, which is anathema to the warp. He lashes out, slamming the shield into the Night Haunter and bearing him down to trap him beneath it. The warp thing collapses, boiling away from the inside as its essence is destroyed. The lion watches it shriek and shrivel into non-existence, and then stands. Conrad Kurz is indeed dead. Long dead. And watching his likeness die the death the Lord of the First could never inflict upon him gives Lionel Johnson no satisfaction. The past is done, and it can be buried and left behind. In the grim darkness of this far future, there is only war. End. Chapter 33. Okay, I will give you the bean. I will give you the bean. They said it. They said the line. They did say the line. Yes. God, I fucking love... That was such a cool series of fights. But I love this author. I've never read one of his books before, but it's just... Everything feels so good about it. Everything. Welcome, 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 welcome. Everyone. Hi. Hi. Hi, the Void Max. Thank you for trying to keep me focused. Also, thank you for the follow. Thank you, Shiny Cat, for the follow as well. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, in that chapter the cats were very, very, very demanding of fusses. And I was trying to focus on the reading. You want more suggestions for 40k novels with good fights? You love the Soul Drinker novels. Well, the next book for next week has already been decided because I pre-ordered Leviathan. They felt the power coming out of that chapter. Yes. Yes, they did. They did. I felt the power. Like, the writing is so good. I don't know if it came across in my voice, but I was getting really into what I was reading. But yeah, next week we've got Leviathan, which I've pre-ordered, which I'll be picking up after work on Monday. Sadly, I can't get to the shop in time to collect it on the weekend. So yeah, I didn't get the limited edition version of that one, sadly, because they had this whole queuing system on the web store. So by the time I was able to actually order the book, all the limited edition ones got sold out. So yeah, I just got the standard hardback edition, which is nice. It's better than the paperback. So that's what we'll be reading next week. But we're still not finished with The Son of the Forest. Yeah. Have a drink, and then I think we should continue. The Lion, Son of the Forest, Epilogue. The Lion had been waiting for word that the Imperium still survives in some form. He has sent expeditionary ships out, and has astropaths screaming their silent messages into the void. But with every new system his forces find, the message is the same. They have been isolated. They have been cut off. They have no knowledge of the wider galaxy. The lion still desperately hopes that the Imperium survives. That he has simply ended up in a part where the isolation and warp storms are particularly bad. Indeed, according to the rumours that run through the worlds he now protects, that is exactly why he is here. A champion to protect them in their time of greatest need. He does not comment on such speculation, because he still cannot truly say what drew him to Kamarth in the first place, nor why he regained awareness at that time. However, another part of him worries. These people were desperate. They wanted a saviour, and were only too happy to cast him in that role. But what happens if the lion encounters a bastion of Imperial space, besieged and still resistant, in contact with other areas and holding firm to their old system? Will they accept who he is? Or will whoever rules there be driven by genuine doubts or simple fears of losing their own authority? Or both, denounce him as an impostor and call for war against him, against his protectorate? The lion has not created an empire, nor attempted to supplant the Imperium, but he fears how it might appear to be suspicious to outsiders. When word of the Imperium does come, it comes in a manner he had not expected. Translation: the Auspex officer of the Lunar Knight shouts as the lion studies the damage reports of the fleet he led against the Orc pirates that had been lurking in the asteroid fields near the world of Denarare. Multiple warp wakes. Xenos? The lion asks, dismissing the readouts and bringing the tactical hololith online. As the bridge readies itself for a combat footing once more. Negative, the Auspex officer says after a moment. Bringing up visual up for you now, my lord. The lion frowns at the grainy image that appears. The shapes are difficult to make out, but it is a small fleet, several light cruisers clustered around a central capital ship. This, however, is not any of the Imperial battleships he had seen since his awakening. This is something new, yet also familiar. That is a battle barge, the lion says. He raises his voice. Do we have an ident? It's reading as Baal's Fury, my lord. The Auspex officer reports. Blood angels, the lion breathes. Sons of his most beloved brother. A joyous sight, and yet potentially disastrous, if they do not accept his tale. They are hailing us, my lord, the Vox officer says. Their commander wishes to speak with you. They are asking for you by name. The bridge goes quiet. Everyone knows how significant this moment could be. We will receive them, the lion says immediately. All ships are to power down weapon systems. I do not want anyone in that force to think we are not glad to see them. He turns and leaves the bridge. Now he just has to hope that his brother's sons give him no reason to regret his orders. The lion stands on the deck of the hangar, with Zabriel to his left. The rest of his sons are commanding other forces and other fleets, lending their skill and experience to the Protectorate, and with orders not to stray too far. All of the so-called fallen are keen to prove their worth, but the lion has impressed the need for caution upon them. Their only chance of survival is to stay in close contact, and be ready to aid each other if needed. The days of Dark Angels crusading fleets venturing into the unknown are long gone. But here are the Blood Angels in a trio of Thunderhawk gunships, sweeping in through the ion field that prevents the hangar's atmosphere from leaking out into the void of space. They touch down as one, as nearly as if this were a parade ground back in the days of the Great Crusade. A flashback to a time before the twin knives of treachery and betrayal were buried into the Imperium's heart. The Thunderhawk's forward ramp slower, and warriors armoured and blood-red descend them in unison. The lion feels a pang of sorrow in seeing Sanguinius's sons. It is one thing to know that his loyal brothers are gone, but quite another to see this reminder of one of them. Quite unexpectedly, the lion feels a rush of guilt. Why should I have been the one to survive? Out of all of this, why should it have been me? However, another part of him is weighing and assessing what he is seeing. 60 Space Marines is a potent force, even more so if they are armed. supplied and organized by squads in a manner his sons cannot currently be. What he could do if these 60 warriors were under his command, but of course they are not. They are here to do him honor, plucked away from what must undoubtedly have been other vital engagements simply because of his status. And if their current commander decides that he is a fraud, then the Lion is under no illusion that these warriors are here to kill him. Then a new group of Space Marines emerged from the central gunship. Between them comes a warrior in extremely ornate golden plate, with a jump pack rising from his back, his face masked. The Lion's eyes fall upon that mask, and rage fills him. "Who are you?" he demands, striding forward. The assembled Blood Angels, who had their weapons held neutrally in parade form, bring them up to ready positions as one. Though they do not yet aim at them, the Lion does not care. "Who are you?" he repeats louder and more angry. "To wear my brother's face." They are Sanguinius's features, cast in gold, and drawn in an expression of rage and grief that reaches out and tears at the Lion's heart all over again. "Stand down, brother," the masked warrior orders, and the Blood Angels lower their weapons once more. Then the gold-armored commander reaches up and removes his helmet, revealing the face beneath it. Lion can see the distant echo of the angel there, greatly distilled by time. The warrior's long hair, which spills loose, is jet black, but threaded with silver, and his pale skin is drawn tight over high cheekbones, with faint blue veins visible beneath it. For all the power and command this Space Marine radiates, Lion can tell that he is ancient. "I am Dante, commander of the Blood Angels," golden-armored warrior says. "I greet you, Lionel Johnson, Lord of the Dark Angels and son of the Emperor." The Blood Angels dropped to one knee, just as smoothly as their Thunderhawks landed. The Lion frowns, abruptly feeling as though he's been wrong-footed. "You were satisfied with my identity. If you will forgive me, Lord, you are older than I expected," Dante says, still on one knee. "But to have so readily and unprompted recognized the face of our Gene Father says much. Besides, I have served the Emperor for over 1,000 years, and I have yet to meet a being with the same bearing as a Primarch, save for another Primarch." The Lion blinks. Over 1,000 years? Dante was ancient indeed, and wait, he says, his mouth dry. "Another Primarch? Get up, all of you," he adds. "Just tell me. One of my brothers yet lives." "My apologies, my Lord Lion," Dante says, rising back to his feet along with his warriors. "I assumed word had arrived ahead of us. Lord Guilliman of Ultramar was revived and healed from the stasis in which he had been locked for millennia. He has launched the Indominus crusade to take back the Imperium from its enemies. He fought his way through the Great Rift and came to rescue my chapter and our blood brothers, and brought reinforcements with him in the shape of the Primaris Marines. A new breed of warrior developed over 10,000 years." The Lion's thoughts are whirling. The Imperium still exists. He is not being denounced as an impostor and plunged into an ugly civil war against his brother's sons. There are other bastions of humanity out there in the galaxy, with which he can link up and fight back against the darkness. However, one thought rises to the surface above all others. Rebute. I am not alone. End epilogue. I felt very emotional. Very emotionally charged. I like that. I like that. Shall we read the afterword? What more is there? Got the afterwards, and then there's a little about the author section. Okay. Hi, beautiful robot boy. How are you doing? How are you doing? We are just coming to the end of this book. Been a good few streams. I've been very much enjoying this. I hope Leviathan is just as good when I get it. But that'll be a next week thing. Good. I'm glad that you're well. Okay. Let's read the afterwards and get this book finished, shall we? The Lion, Son of the Forest, Afterward. My days with Warhammer 40,000 go back to the second edition box set, which I got for Christmas in 1993. I remember second edition. That's when I started. God, I was a child, an actual child back then. As well as the iconic bolt pistol and axe Goths and the utterly deadly pointy-hatted Gretchen. Oh god, I remember those. It contained the legendary Codex Imperialis, which is probably the original lore source for the 40k universe, as we understand it today. Yes, Rogue Trader was earlier, but rather different. I've still got that book. I'm looking at it as I type this, and within its pages can be found the list of the Primarchs and their chapters. The concept of legions came later. Some of the details have changed, but the essentials are there. 18 chapters, 18 Primarchs, 2 redacted. Right there at the top is Lionel Johnson. In a little box out on the opposite page is a short passage about how it is rumoured that the Dark Angels nearly betrayed the Emperor. When I was a teenager, the Primarchs were mythical figures, known only through a few quotations here and there. That ancient model of Lehman Russ that you couldn't get any longer, and the tiny epic models of Angron, Mortarion, Magnus, and Fulgrim. They were part of the game's lore, and even as new codexes came out with new and exciting models and rules and characters, and the game expanded with new factions, you never expected one to turn up. I was used to Warhammer 40,000 not changing. It was the end of the 41st millennium. Everything was on fire, and the Imperium was in just as much stasis as Codex Ultramarines said that Robert T. Gilliman was. But then, of course, the Horus Heresy happened. The novels gave us a look at the Primarchs not as long ago figures, but as real, really flawed characters you could see and hear, and in the case of Lorgar, utterly loathe. The game brought with it actual models with actual rules, using a Primarch on the tabletop. It would have been unthinkable. It made sense, though. That was the era of the Primarchs, when they'd been doing their thing. Then 40k Magnus appeared, which felt like a bit of a shift. The Demon Primarchs were still around somewhere, everyone knew that. But no one had seen one since the long ago days of Epic. It was something that a lot of people wanted, but I think few people ever expected. One of the major players was actually in the game, in the most literal sense. Then Gilliman came back, and everything changed. This was just before I started writing for Black Library, and it was a shock to me. I never expected to see a Loyalist Primarch in 40k. After over 20 years of playing the game and reading the fiction, the Imperium had actually altered in a major way. Suddenly, you felt that anything was possible. All of which is a long-winded way of saying that writing a Primarch novel set in and around the days of the Great Crusade was incredibly cool, but it was cool in a way that aligned with existing parameters. Getting told that a second Loyalist Primarch was returning, and that Black Library would like me to write his first novel, was on a different level, because it harked back to my earliest days in the hobby, when I would read Codex Imperialis from cover to cover, again and again, immersing myself in the grim dark background and whatever the hell was going on in John Blanche's artwork. I was getting the chance to be a part of another huge shift in the background, and what more can you ask for as an author writing tie-in fiction? However, with great power comes great responsibility, and with great characters come great restrictions. It was explained to me from the start that I was writing The Lion at a specific moment in time to flesh out a space between different source books. I was neither truly starting the Lion's story in Warhammer 40,000, nor was I recounting his first major action in the setting. Instead, I was putting some pieces together and explaining how the Lion got from there to here, and hopefully doing it in a way that made for a satisfactory novel in its own right. That's a different brief to what I've tended to work with before. when I've had, if not complete freedom, at least the option to pitch my own start and finish points and be told yes or no. Here they were already set out for me, and I had to wrangle the middle. Start with the character. Lionel Johnson is not, on the face of it, a particularly likeable bloke. Crusade and Heresy era Lion comes across as something of a hypocrite when it comes to secrets and questionable methodologies. Setting up a new Imperium in case the old one already burned is very bad. But using a Chaos artifact to jump your ship around as you want is fine, apparently. He thinks he's special because Dad entrusted him with all those fancy toys. If any Primarch was going to be walking around with a piece of paper on which was written, "I can do what I want," it's the Lion. The difference between him and Kurz is that Kurz would just write it on your liver. In the 41st millennium, things are different. Dad isn't around. Dad might not still be alive, and if he is, then he's not actively in charge anymore. The Lion wakes up in the Imperium Nihilus, with no idea what's happening in the galaxy at large. Rabuti is over in Sanctus, far better informed, and with most of the Imperium's might to play with once he knocks a few High Lords' heads together. The Lion's got the half of the galaxy that's even more on fire than it used to be. He doesn't know where he is or when he is. He's markedly older, and he has very few friends. Everything that made him special amongst his brothers, his legion, his weaponry, their fleet, their secret purpose, even his numeration, is gone. What happens then? To my mind, that meant the Lion has to work out who he is in and of himself, rather than defining himself by that which the Emperor has tasked him. The Lion wants the Imperium to still exist, because that was his father's design, and he still trusts his father's vision, but he's not going to try and make a new one. I enjoyed mocking Dark Angels players as traitors as much as anyone else, but I'm afraid that time is now past. The Lion is definitely loyal, but he's not an empire builder. He's a warrior, a killer, and that's why he's in Nihilus. Guilliman is the bold, shining face of the Imperium, bringing light back to beleaguered worlds to drive away the darkness and the monsters it contains. The Lion lurks in the darkness and stabs the monsters in the ribs, which is what Nihilus needs. In all honesty, this was also, to some extent, a deliberate choice on my part. The Imperium is an awful place, and I struggled with the notion of having a hero upholding what the Imperium represents, particularly the modern pre-Guilliman version, although the Emperor's vision wasn't exactly a picnic either. Besides which, the Lion was going to be just as appalled as his brother at the changes that had occurred while he was sleeping. In terms of my satisfaction as an author, and being true to what had come before, it made most sense for the Lion to go around hunting the enemies of humanity and leave other people to deal with the politics. One thing layered into the brief was the notion of the Lion being an Arthurian figure. Arthur, of course, being the true King of England who will allegedly return from his long sleep on Avalon when his country needs him the most. I decided to run with this, which is why keen-eyed readers will have spotted Arthurian influences among the names: Sword in the Stone, the Green Knight, and the Fisher King. The notion of the Emperor being the Fisher King suddenly struck me one morning, a wounded monarch trapped in his castle, awaiting the one who can heal him. Similarities were too great to ignore for a novel which was already supposed to contain Arthurian elements. So those dreamlike sequences, inspired by conversations between Malcador and the Emperor, and Horus in the Siege of Terror, became part of the plot. Of course, the Fisher King in this story cannot be healed, and I wondered whether that made it feel incomplete. However, I must credit Jeanette and G for pointing out to me that the flawed knight who finds the Grail castle but doesn't heal the Fisher King is also part of the myth. So there we have the Lion, the flawed knight, still a great force for good, but not perfect. And who knows, perhaps at some point in the future, the Emperor will be healed, or will finally die. After all, the background is moving now, and anything feels possible. However, the Lion was not the only issue. Another part of the brief I was given was that by the end of the novel, the Lion needed to have collected a group of fallen, cue a deep dive into the Horus Heresy's lore, This time, courtesy of the 9th rulebook, Crusade. As I tried to get under the skin of the pre-heresy Dark Angels, I must also shout out to Dave Geimer's excellent Lord of the First, which really gave me a firm foundation from which to work. I decided early on that the line would meet one lone member of the Fallen to begin with, a Terran-born veteran who had been with the Legion since before the line was found, and got exiled to Caliban, to which he had no connection, and didn't particularly like. Terran-born legionaries versus Space Marines from the Primarch's homeworld was a recurring theme in the heresy, for obvious reasons, and it made sense to revisit it here. This became Zabriel, a former destroyer who had faced the worst the galaxy had thrown at him, and resented being sat on a backwater instead of doing what he was created for. However, one thing I quickly realized was that the treachery of the Fallen, whether through anger or malice or ignorance, was almost less interesting than what they are now. They are scattered and lost, and in some cases, quite bewildered by their surroundings. I was drawn to the idea of this loose network of them, of tenuous alliances based on old ranks and structures, or even shared values, but simply the fact that no one else around knows exactly what it's like to be one of the Fallen. You might not like this other Space Marine you've tracked down, you might not even know him, but he is at least someone around whom you don't need to pretend for a while. While there might be a whole legion's worth of them out there somewhere under Luther's command, if the rumours are to be believed, there's also a fair number who have little or no organised contact, and rely on secret signs to find each other, and know they're in what passes for a safe space. This then became the main thrust of Son of the Forest. Blind has to work out who he is outside the context of being his father's son, and in doing so, he gets the band back together, because he doesn't know for sure if he trusts them. At least there's something familiar in this strange future. What would those Fallen be doing? We're familiar with the notion of them being Chaos affiliated, or at least thoroughly untrustworthy, but I reckoned that a fair few would just be trying to survive. Old warriors now hunted, admittedly because some of their fellows have done heinous things, and trying to keep their heads down, but who sometimes feel the need to step in and help people, and thereby risk drawing attention to themselves. The novel needed an antagonist, and given the Lion was still wrestling with who he is, what he's done, and what he's supposed to do now, it made sense that amongst the antagonist to be one of the Fallen as well. We weren't touching Luther. If that rematch is coming at all, then I'm guessing it'll be some way off, and presumably after we find out what definitely happened the first time round. And so I found Seraphax, who was originally created for a Warhammer World event. I backed him up with Balor the Imposter, a footnote in Codex Dark Angels from the 6th edition. As neither of them seemed to be doing anything, I thought they might as well get their chance to shine. Crucially, I wanted Seraphax to have fallen in truth, but still be clinging to the parts of what he was. He honestly believes that his plan is the only way to defeat chaos and save humanity. And let's be fair, others have had the same idea. And so he justifies everything he does with that one end. He is so different from any... Is he so different from the Imperium in that way? If he succeeded and killing the Emperor's mortal form, actually did cause him to be reborn as a literal god and wipe the stars clean of chaos, would anyone consider the cost of the world Seraphax destroyed, or the lives he'd taken to be too high? I doubt it. There's perhaps another lesson here as well, the one of Balor. People can be drawn to someone charismatic who has a definite plan, especially if their experiences tell them that this person is a person whom they should be obeying. Balor should know better, and in some respects he does know better, but he's lost in a hostile galaxy and, as he tells the Lion, nothing makes sense anymore. Seraphax's plan might seem horrific if you think about it, but it's a plan, and Seraphax used to be his captain, so Balor latches onto it out of a desperate need for purpose as much as anything else. As is so often the case, he is most definite about his cause's righteousness when it's being questioned by an outside party. In this case, Zabriel. Baylor should really have trusted his own judgment. But original thinkers rarely make good soldiers. Good commanders, perhaps, but not good soldiers, and any empire needs many more soldiers than commanders. It's not that common a trait amongst space marines. The price of getting to play in someone else's sandbox is that you have to obey their rules when you're there. And the Lion understandably had far more rules attached to him than my own creations, like Cheto or Uftak. This made for a new level of challenge as an author in terms of balancing my, admittedly sometimes rather left-field, creative instincts with the needs of the IP. I'd like to extend my thanks to Jacob and Kate, my editors, for their assistance in smoothing the way. It's been a privilege to start the Lion on his way in the new millennium, and I hope you enjoyed reading it, even more than I enjoyed writing it. For the Lion, Mike Brooks, June 2022. Wait, my god, this was released this was written a year ago, and it only got released like a couple of months ago. That's blah. About the author. Mike Brooks is a science fiction and fantasy author who lives in Nottingham, United Kingdom. His works for Black Library include the Horus Heresy Primarch's novels, Alfarius, Head of the Hydra, and Warhammer 40,000 novels, Rites of Passage, War Boss, and Brutal Cunning, the Necromunda novel, Road to Redemption, and the novellas Wanted, Dead, and Dagobo's Revenge. When not writing, he plays the guitar and sings in a punk band, and DJs wherever anyone will tolerate him. This was an absolutely fantastic book. I'm glad, beautiful robot boy. These are comfy hours. Comfy hours. But we've finished the book, guys. We've finished the book. I don't know what to do now. This is technically the book that comes after it. But it's not really a full, it's not like a novel or anything. I'm gonna need to put, there's only 2,000, I want to show off this book again. So this is the limited edition version of The Lion, Son of the Forest. There's only 2,000 of these in the whole world. It looks like something that belongs in a museum. It's just beautifully designed and made. It's got a quote from the lion on the back. I failed my father. I fear I also failed my brothers. I'm not going to fail my sons. And it's signed by the author. If we look in yeah, a little smiley face. A little smiley face. We got number 261 of the 2,000 that were made. This is my favorite book of all time, and I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you enjoyed me sharing this with you. I hope that you'll continue to enjoy. I hope I get to share lots of books with you guys. I always thought about doing book reading streams, but I think this is the book that's like kind of made it feel very much like it's a thing I want to do, and have it be like regular content for my channels. It's just very fun and relaxing. So we can take a look. So I already know what happens in this book because, you know, I watched a bunch of spoilers about Arcs of Omen on YouTube because I didn't really want to not know what was going on in the lore. So this is all about the Dark Angels. There's some rules and some maps and some stuff like that. There's data sheets. Of course, all of this doesn't matter because this is for 9th edition and 10th edition comes out in 4 days. I'm glad you guys enjoy my reading voice. It's a fun time. There's a lot of cool books. I mean, missions and stuff like that. There's a lot of rules in this book. For, like, different missions and stuff. Some pictures of models. Of course, this is all upside down as you guys look at it. Some really cool art. I need to kit bash something that looks like this. This looks cool as hell. I need to make that miniature. I can't wait to get all of these guys painted up and put on the tabletop again, finally. Like, it's gonna be so fun. It's gonna be so fun getting to play the game. I haven't played properly in 20 years. I didn't expect I'd get so I didn't think I would get so into Warhammer again, in all honesty. I never thought that it would happen, because I always like put it off as like an expensive thing, and then I got back into it because you guys, my chat, just really encouraged me, and it's something that gets me excited and makes me happy every day now, and it's something that I used to share with my family, and yeah, I didn't kind of realize how much it would mean to me. I'm very grateful for you being. Yeah. I don't know how much of this. I wonder if I could. Is this a quick read? I like. There's a lot of. There's a lot of art in the book. I know roughly what the story is. See, it mentions the different risen that travel with the lion. I am kind of tired though. There are a lot of books to read, you know. I know there's a lot. Like there's literally the Black Library has so many books, and I'm just like. So basically, what happens next? Because I'm not going to read this because this is too short, and I don't think I've got enough time, and it's not a novel. So what happens next is, basically, the Dark Angels chapter, the modern guys, the little brothers, they are chasing Vashtor the Arcanthane, a great demon who's attempting to become the new Chaos God, who's assaulted the rock, and they are going to try and chase him down. They follow him, and it's obviously a trap. So they go fight him, and oh, you want first edition Tiger? Sorry, Keiki, I didn't see. I'm sorry. So they chase him. It's a trap. They go down to the planet. Their fleet gets attacked, and it all goes horribly, horribly wrong. And yeah, then the Blood Angels come, and they're like, "Hey, we're here to reinforce you." And they have the Imperial Navy, and the Dark Angels are like, "Bruh, this was meant to be a secret operation." And it's not just like the Dark Angels; it's all their successor chapters, and they're basically back at like full Legion strength, which hasn't happened for 10,000 years. Because after the Horus Heresy, all the Space Marine legions got broken up into different chapters, and yeah, to prevent anyone from having too much power. And yeah. Anyway, the Blood Angels come with the Imperial Navy, and they come and help the Dark Angels out. And then there's Angron, who is the Demon Primarch of Khorne, who's ascended. He comes back, and he's killing everyone. He's kicking everyone's asses. Then the Lion comes out of nowhere, and like comes in with a steel chair, and fucking smashes Angron's skull in with the Emperor's shield, and it's fantastic. This isn't my new model. This is the very first model. This is the first model. I don't have a new model. This is the first one. Look how stiff it is. Then I got this one updated into this one, which is the normal one. Well, this is the normal one. It's exactly the same model. It's just, I mean, it's not exactly the same. It had updated art. I quite like this one. I feel like it's very standard. Just nice. Yeah. Yeah. That was the first edition Tiger, the very first model. It was actually an adoptable. I had a plan to do VTubing as something else, and then I just saw it in impulse bought it because it came with a bunch of assets, and then I was like, I vibed with that. I don't actually use any of that stuff I got with it mostly anymore. I mean, I use the overlays and all that stuff, and the stinger. Yeah. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, so the lion smashes Angron's head in and banishes him back to the warp, but like he's really powerful now, so it's like he's only dead temporarily. And Vashtor like gets a thing from the Dark Angels' flagships, the Rock, and activates his planet, and the planet they're on starts falling apart. It's very cool and very epic. I can't really do it justice with this very quick-winded bit of description. And then yeah, all the Chaos guys die. Then they start running away. Everyone runs away because the planet is basically escaping. And then the Lion is finally reunited with the Dark Angels chapter, the modern Dark Angels. So he's got the whole band back together now. He's got the old guys and the new guys, and it's fine. Yeah, there's going to be some interesting drama because the Dark Angels, their whole job was hunting down the Fallen for the past 10,000 years. That was their whole thing, and it's really cool. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with their new stories and their new lore when it comes out in the future. It's gonna be nice. Yeah. But I'm kind of tired, and I should probably pick someone to raid. Who's on? Who do I know that's on? Let's see. Who do I fancy raiding? I don't think I've raided Jeff in forever. Yes, that is Evie, one of my two cats. We had cat cam earlier because Haru was like sitting where my keyboard is. Gatto. Okay. She wants a fuss. So I will, yes, cat butt. Cat butt. I'm glad you're enjoying the cat butt. You know what? I'm gonna raid Jeff. I haven't raided Jeff in ages. Yeah. You want literally in my way for everything I need to do right now. Let's raid Jeff. Jeff is a good bean. He's having his first stream for a little while. As always, thank you all for choosing to spend your time with me. Tomorrow we're going to be starting our very first charity stream. Yeah, it's going to be a nice time. I've got lots of fun things planned. I'm going to be working really hard to set it all up tomorrow. We're going to be doing supporting gamer outreach tomorrow as part of VTuber Summer Slam. So it's going to be a big thing. There's going to be lots and lots of cool stuff planned. And it's going to be nice. It's going to have a 12-hour start time. And it's going to probably go on for a bit longer. It'll probably go on for at least 2 days. It'll be a fun time. I'm probably going to sleep at some point through it. But I'll just any sleep time we'll go back. Okay? I love you all. I hope you have a wonderful day, night, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you tomorrow, okay? Bye. Mwah.